As I said, it's about 20 degrees Celsius, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a kind of quiet morning, really. We had lions calling at about 4:30, I suppose. Then one or two francolins. You've just heard one of them scuttling off terrified into the bushes over there. But otherwise, just the doves and the odd black-headed oriole going. You're on a live safari, in case you're wondering what it is that you've stumbled across. A live safari from South Africa, and it is completely live and interactive, so we would love to hear from you. Hashtag Safari Live on the tweet is how you get hold of us. Also out on drive today, Jamie Patterson. She's out in the north looking for lions with Sensor on camera, and then shortly to be out on foot, Byron of the South, Sarau, will be on foot, and he is going to be filmed by David, and they will hopefully show you some of the smaller stuff and perhaps track something with the skills of Herbert very soon. In the final control, Siri is directing. She is being ably assisted by Louise, who seems to have removed her bed from her bed into the final control, and so I'm not sure if she's awake yet, so send her a lot of questions, hashtag Safari Live, and she will send them through to my ear and give me a thorough slapping when I return to camp 3 hours from now. Good. Okay, my plan is to head down towards the hyena den. That is not too far from here. See if the cubs are there, and then move on to try and find some leopards. Now, before I carry on, I must just tell you, all of you have been, or many of you have been wishing me bon voyage, pleasant safari journey up to Kenya, telling me how much you're going to miss me. I'm not sure where the impression has been created that I'm disappearing from here. I think yesterday's kind of nostalgic Scott and Brent drive made everybody think that I too was leaving. I'm not leaving yet, only on the 31st of May, so you're stuck with me for another 6 weeks. Now, if you multiply that, 7 times 6 is 42. That's 42 days times 2 is 84 drives. Now, that's something to look forward to. Let's go down towards the hyenas, and then, of course, I will be driving from Kenya as well. Now, from that ridiculous, let us go from the ridiculous to the sublime with Jamie Patterson.
Oh, that is lovely from James. A very good morning to all of you, and welcome on our sunrise safari. My name is Jamie, and this morning Sensor is on camera with me, and we're both very, very excited to be transporting you on your live safari experience. Well, this morning I heard a lion roaring, so I'm going to go and search for said lion. That's my plan, for now at least. Hopefully he doesn't decide to cross out of our boundaries before we get to him, to try and sort of minimize the chances of that. I'm on the boundary already. Makes sense. If he's going to stay on Djuma, he'll be on Djuma for me to find. If he's going to cross, I might as well try and get here as quickly as possible. I too have been receiving many farewells. I'm not going yet, just as James is still staying for a little while. I will not be moving up to Kenya until June or so. But thank you all very much for your kind messages of support. Brent will be going. He'll be going very shortly. It helps to set up base. It's wonderful. It means I can send him with all our stuff. But thank you to all of you who've been sending messages. Never fear. We'll be with you for another month and a half at least. I don't actually know when I'm going. I'll give you a date when I know. Okay, male lion. I think he was a bit further this way. He was calling directly east of the camp, from what I could tell, sitting drinking my coffee this morning. But unfortunately, walls have the effect of bouncing back sound. It becomes a bit more difficult to judge where it's coming from. And as it gets colder, we have to reset our minds as to distance, because of course sound travels further in the cold. It might have been he's a little bit further than I was hoping. Voltan, you want to know, well, how far away can you hear a lion roar? Human ears, I would say not much further than around about 5 kilometers, maybe a little bit further on a chilly morning. Brent, on the other hand, appears to be able to hear them from 20 kilometers away with the TV blaring. It's astounding. The TV will be on, you'll be watching something, and all of a sudden he'll stop and go, oh, there's a lion. No, I don't quite think it's 20 kilometers away, but he can hear them very, very far. His ear's very well tuned to picking them up. I think it's a frequency thing. Either way, Brent is very good at hearing lions. But I would say my maximum distance, at least, personally, and obviously everybody's different, everybody's got a different hearing. My maximum distance is probably around about 5 kilometers, maybe a little bit more, if the conditions are right. Bear in mind, a lion could be roaring in the dip, or a lion could be roaring at the top of the hill. And obviously, if it's at the top of the hill, it's going to travel further. There is a branch, and you know, of course, we're all getting a little bit nostalgic already about Djuma. There is a branch that catches me every single time I drive along this road, and I think that it's a lion or a leopard walking on it. It's right at the top of that hill, and it looks, for all the world, in the middle of the road there. When it hangs out over the road like that, when you're far away, it looks for all the world like a lion walking over the top of the crest. It is, however, not a lion. Although it would be hugely convenient if one just came over the top now. But, sadly, there is no lion yet. I'm going to continue the search while I do. Sometimes searches are best performed on foot, so let's go and find out what Byron is searching for.
Good morning, everyone, and we have just started our bushwalk. My name is Byron, and on camera with me this morning is David. Now we've got Herbert, and the very light-footed Scott Dyson is also joining us on our bushwalk this morning. Now I've just found some tracks of an animal that has visited us during the course of the evening. There are hyena tracks. Have a look, right outside camp, very close to camp. We do have to be careful that they don't steal the dustbins. They pick up the scent of food, and they do wander into camp at times. But this is a very clear hyena track from last night. You can see the back pad very clearly over there, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4 toes. Now in the soft sand, like it is over here, it becomes a bit of a smudge, but you can tell that it is still a hyena track. So from those hyena tracks, we are going to start heading out. Now I know we all heard lions calling early this morning, so we might try head into that area, possibly try give Jamie a hand of find out where those lions have gone, see if we can find any tracks, and maybe track them through a block if they have walked through there. It is a bit easier for us being on foot, so we are able to then walk and see the tracks and hopefully find the animals, and then we'll see what else we can find. I'm hoping to bump into some elephant today. That would be really, really nice, and perhaps look at some of the smaller creatures which we might find on bushwalk. Morning, everyone. Some people heading out on safari, so they I'm sure if they find anything they'll let us know too and keep us warned as to where the big scary animals are. No, they're not scary at all. But we are looking forward to this bushwalk this morning. It's a nice cool morning, perfect for a bushwalk, and we shall see what we can find. Let's head back to James and find out how his morning's going so far.
I'm doing fine, everybody. It's not very long since I last saw you. No tragedies have befallen me over the intervening few minutes. Here we are, and we're going to look at some flowers. Why are we going to look at flowers when we could be looking at hyenas and elephants and leopards and lions? Well, it's because there aren't any of those around. We checked the hyena den, and unfortunately the hyenas were absent. Now what I wanted to show you was this hibiscus flower. There's a lion calling. Unfortunately, it's most of the way to the Mozambique coast at this stage, so I don't think we're going to see it. Long way east and south. They walk so far just before dawn. Anyway, this hibiscus flower, that's not to say there aren't more around here, will open up as the sun comes out, and I just find this, I've never ceased to be amazed by the ability of flowers to open and close when the sun comes out and then disappears again. and that a seemingly completely non-sentient creature without any kind of muscle or motor function at all is able to achieve this on a daily basis, I think is quite remarkable. Anyway, in not too long at all, it will open up, reveal itself to the sun, and be another shining yellow light on this wilderness morning. Good. That was very poetic, wasn't it, Fergus?
Indeed.
It was good. Yes, you need to encourage me, otherwise I become, I get very dejected. I have a fragile ego. That is what happens when you are a presenter, you see. There we go. Clapping after each segment is an excellent way to keep me in good and high spirits. Let us continue. I also just want maybe the final control to tell Jamie we did hear a lion calling. It sounded like probably as far as Chitwa Dam. Now, it's not necessarily the same lion, but it might be the same lion that was calling earlier. We are going to go all the way down here towards the brown ivory tree, have one final look and see around there if there are any shadow and cub tracks, because we walked that whole area yesterday, Herbert and Fergus and I, and we didn't find any further sign. So I think she's probably moved the cub. The lions came through there the night before that, and I think she probably would have moved the cub to a sort of safer, less lion-infested part of the reserve. Let's have a quick look at the tracks here. Just hyenas. Hello, Dale. Yes, you do. You say, do we see the same sorts of animals on self-drives in the Kruger that we do here? I don't know if that's Dale or Gale. It's one of the two, and obviously you can't be the same person because one, of course, is a very masculine name, one a feminine one. So Dale or Gale. Gafogari. Okay, good. Gale. Yes, you can see the same animals that you see here on a self-drive in the Kruger, and it's one of the most wonderful things. You can drive into Kruger on your own. Obviously you can't drive off the road, but you can see lions and leopards and cheetahs and wild dogs, and you can also have time if you go to the right parts of the park where you are almost completely alone. And so if you are traveling on a budget or you're traveling sort of as an adventurer, well, it's a wonderful way to experience Africa's wildlife. The Kruger National Park has got some brilliant facilities. It's easy to travel through and around. It's safe and convenient, and you can see everything that we see here. The advantage of these reserves, though, is that you can drive off-road. They're slightly more exclusive in that you're not going to share a sighting with 46 other vehicles. You're not going to share every sighting in Kruger with 46 vehicles, but you know here that there will be a certain level of exclusivity to it, which is great. I think that Mrs. Hyena went wandering down this road during the course of the day. Not day, night. It was night before now, I think. That's correct, hey? Yes. Let's drive a little bit faster. I wonder if they didn't head towards those old zebra carcasses that the lions left yesterday on Arathusa. It would also, of course, be very nice to catch up with that pack of wild dogs we had yesterday on Arathusa. Otherwise, things are a little bit quiet. And I was saying yesterday that I find the quietness of the impala quite disconcerting. They have really made very little effort to get into their rut. Apart from a small group around this area here, there's been very little roaring and head-butting and fighting, and yet, of course, we know that the rut must happen during the dark, or the mating must happen during the dark phase of the moon in May, so I'm not sure what it is, or what could have possibly kept them from being more enthusiastic about their rut. Thankfully, Byron has now managed to find an animal, and it is the very animal about which I have just been speaking.
We have indeed found some animals. Jamie, we've got a herd of impala behind us. Now I'm just having a look. It sounded like there may have been some rutting, possibly this, or it sounded like males, the horns clashing. So I'm trying to have a look to see if we can't find some males rutting. It's amazing to see these these large males having a full fight now during the rutting season. But I can hear little grunts. It sounds like the females. They've got this very strange sound. It sounds almost like a bit of a burp. It's a soft call that the impala do when they're communicating with each other. Usually when they've got lambs, but it's unusual for them to do it now because there aren't any lambs around. Now they've just moved off through into that thicket behind me. Is that something over there? It's always good to stop and scan. Now we did hear that lion calling again. It sounded like much further east, so basically in that direction. It's always tricky to tell how far it was, but it sounded like it was still on Djuma, so I'm sure Jamie's going to be heading into that area, but it was quite far for us to walk to and get to that area. The other one that we heard this morning sounded much closer, unless that male decided to move and walk north from where it was this morning. But this is a lovely spot to stop and scan around, just see if there are any animals moving about in the distance. I don't see, just the impala for now. Not much else to be seen. There were some wildebeest that we did catch earlier moving through the clearing away from us. Just 2 or 3, not a big herd that we're used to seeing around this area. So we'll see. But I'm just trying to work out now exactly where we need to go and search for that lion, and find out perhaps if there were 2 lions that were calling. That's the other thing. It might have been 2 different lions. We do know the Birmingham males move through these areas a lot. Could even have been maybe one of the lionesses calling. We didn't hear it very, very clearly. The one that we heard earlier did sound like a male, though. It was a deeper, longer roar, as opposed to a female. It's got a not as deep, but a little bit shorter. Whereas a male will go, ooh, ooh. And the females, it's a little bit shorter. Ooh, ooh. That's the best way I can describe it. It is a bit shorter. So we shall see if they call again. We may just let Jamie know so that she can stop and listen wherever she is, if she's possibly closer to those calls. See if there's anything else on the clearings. So we're going to head down towards some of the drainage lines where it is a little bit thicker, and see if we can't find some activity from any animals really. I can hear the oxpeckers calling in the distance on that side. They're the oxpeckers that would have been sitting on those impala that we saw. We know that it's important to listen out for the oxpeckers because they may be sitting on animals like buffalo or rhino, or you never know, giraffe, anything like that. Hyena tracks again and walked along the road. The nice thing about, and because the bush is quite thick at the moment, now these clearings behind me are looking beautiful. Great grazing for a lot of the animals like the zebra, the wildebeest and impala. But it is nice for us to check the roads a lot because it is a very large pathway. So it is easier to find the tracks. Even if the animals just cross the road, they've got to go through it somewhere. And a lot of the time during the evenings, now I see an interesting little track here. Oh, what is this? Tiny little track. You know what I think this is? I may double check with Herbert, but I think I know what it is. It looks like a little civet track. Not a civet, I'm lying, a genet. That is a little genet track, a very, very small genet track that's run across the road. Beautiful round. There's a very small, let me show you, that's the small back pad, and they're the little toes. So just running across here, that's a genet that ran across the road. That's very nice. Like as I was saying, It's nice to spot these little tracks of nocturnal creatures that have been running across the road. More hyena tracks. I didn't quite copy that name. No, Kunj. I'm sorry, I didn't. Kunj, I didn't get it properly. Anyway, you asked if what the rutting is for male impala. So thank you, Alice. Yes. So rutting for the male impala is basically when the impala reach a time of year that they are looking to mate with the females, the males. So we refer to it as the rut. The males have all been feeding for the summer. They're looking big, strong, and healthy. And the big dominant males will challenge one another. So they make these very strange sounds, these grunts and snorts, and they chase one another around. And then what happens is the males will fight. So they'll have a little standoff, they'll lock horns, they will fight, and the bigger, stronger, more dominant ones will be able to mate with a number of females that they will try and keep in an area. So that is the rutting season for impala. And now April, May, that's generally the rutting season for impala. They then mate. Usually with, in the month of May, that's when they do mate. And then the first lambs are born around the beginning of November. That's when the first impala lambs are generally born. Beginning of November to middle November. What does happen sometimes, there might be some impala females which have not been covered. So what happens then is that a few months later, a few months down the line, the males pick up that those females are not pregnant, and they will then almost go into a second rut where they will mate again with those, or try and mate with those females to cover them, and then you may get a slight delay of 3 or 4 months, and some other small impala lambs will be born. But that doesn't happen that often. You might see 2 or 3, not many of them. Generally, all the impala give birth around the same time of year, which is important because it's this. Sorry, I just heard. No, just listening again with the rut, you hear these impalas snorting, and it sounds like they're alarm calls. So sometimes we need to listen carefully, but you will hear them actually running while they're snorting, and that's a sign that it's the rat. It's not an alarm call. So as I was saying, with the impala lambs, them all being born at the same time, chances of survival are a lot better, because then what happens is if there's 1 or 2 or 3 that are caught by predators, there's still 20 which survive. So it is a great strategy to ensure that the impala do very, very well as a species, and that is why there are so many impala around at the moment, and why they are the most abundant antelope in this entire greater Kruger area. Now, demented zombie owl, the rat is dependent on females going into estrus, yes, but I think it's a changing of the seasons that also triggers it. The impala generally try and again, who knows how they work this out, but they try and give birth just as the first rains arrive, so in November, so that there is a bit of food that starts coming out for the females, so that they have got good food and that they are able to provide milk for those youngsters. Now, I think it's a combination of two. The males know, changing of the seasons, going from summer into autumn, that it's now time to start mating, and probably the females being in estrus definitely is a big trigger for those males to start rutting. Pheromones, all those smells and that they can pick up on, those will be very, very prominent around that time of year, or this time of year. And then the males will then go into that rutting stage where they will then fight and try and mate with the females. I love these little purple flowers. Bree, I've never heard of impala becoming aggressive towards humans. I don't think so. Even with the rat, it's unlikely that they'd become aggressive towards people. They'd still just run away. However, Bree, what is interesting is those males get so caught up in fighting, and they drop their guard quite a bit, because they're so involved in that fighting and trying to dominate another male that they forget to look around for predators. So you'll find this time of year a lot of predators prey on male impala because it's easy to hunt them. These males fighting, rutting, making a noise, and a lion or leopard could sneak up very, very easily, which is I suppose it's a sacrifice those males are willing to make. If they are successful in beating another male, they then have the opportunity to mate with a lot of females. Now, I just saw these beautiful flowers. This is from the devil's thorn. Beautiful purple flowers of the devil's thorn. It's like this little creeper which is growing along the ground over here. Always nice to see these little flowers still in or late in the summer or in the autumn. But we can tell these temperatures have definitely started changing. The last 2 days have been quite cool. Now, James, that's a good question. You were asking what other flowers still flower or plants still flower this late in the season. So, James, I'm trying to think now. Some of these little devil's thorns. What else? There are a few other little purple flowers that I've seen at the moment. Just trying to think which species they are. Can't remember now, but James, later in winter we also get the impala lilies, those beautiful lilies that we see, especially when it's completely dry and barren. Towards the end of winter, these impala lilies flower, and it's amazing to see them. Beautiful pink and white flowers. They are slightly toxic, so animals don't really feed on them, but there are plenty of them around during that time, which is interesting. So they flower completely differently at a different time to the rest of the flowers that we get out here. Alright, let's continue down towards this little drainage line up ahead, and let's head to Jamie and find out how his search for that lion is going.
I'm thinking about my absolute favorite flower, full stop, I think, out here. And it is a tree that flowers at this time of year, and that is the impala lily. And I'm sure Byron probably touched on it, because it is the most spectacular plant. The flowers, that's interesting. The flowers are bright pink outlined and then with white on them, and it does make them absolutely stunning. Goodness, these are very interesting. How am I going to show them to you in this light? I'm just going to have to try. That's the nicest set of Aardvark tracks I've seen in a very, very long time. There we go. Let's just have a look and see how they look on camera, Sensor. It's those scuff marks over there on the far side of the road. Let me just see what it looks like before I jump out, just to see if you're going to be able to see. Right. So about as clear as mud then. Alright, let me jump out. They look beautiful. Let me take my mobile device, and perhaps I can take a picture from above, and that might help you as well. Because obviously with the vehicle, I can't position you in the exact correct spot. Not only was it an Aardvark, it was an Aardvark that was wandering up and down this road. Now the part of the Aardvark track that you usually see is over here. These 3 toes here. So these are toes, and you can actually see the indents of the claws. What's even more fascinating in this particular track is you can see the toes on the outside as well, in the back of the foot. And these are really, really lovely Aardvark tracks. It's a cloudy day, which does not make things very easy. Maybe if I take my torch, maybe that might help. Hold on a sec. Let me grab it. Battery's a bit flat. Let me try and take a picture for you and then show you what it looks like. It's not going to help really, especially not if the battery's flat. Please let me know if there's a lion behind me, because he's somewhere around here. Okay. Pity. I walked up and down here. I, of course, have never seen an aardvark. It's one of those funny things. Everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people seem to have an animal that just evades them. And it's different animals for different people. For some people, I think Byron said he's never seen a caracal, for example. For me, mine is the aardvark. I have never ever seen an aardvark. I've seen their tracks. I've seen them in zoos. I've seen dead ones. But a live aardvark, not so much. That didn't really help you very much, did it? But it's sort of a picture from above. So that there, those over there are his 3 toes, and you can just see the claws where they've dug into the soil. So it was an attempt to make that slightly clearer, but I'm not sure that it paid off terribly much. Okay, thanks, Senzo. Now, remember, apropos what we were saying about the distance of a lion's roar and how far we can hear it. I was in a dip when James heard that lion roaring. I think he's here, but I think James might have been hearing one there as well. So we'll go see if we can track them down. Speaking of James and his amazing hearing skills, let's go and see what he's been listening to.
Well, we're trying, everybody, to find some canaries and quelias and all sorts of little finchy type birds flying around there. Obviously getting them on camera is proving quite difficult, clearly because you're still looking at my face. Can you see any of them? You've got one there? There was a long-billed Crombec in there. I think that's what that is. Yes, I can hear it going. Spectacular sighting, that, isn't it? That is awesome. Gee whiz. How magnificent. Okay, right. Well, that was a bit of a fail. Let's go a little bit forward. There was a massive flock of birds here. Mixed species. Let's look down at the water's edge. Perhaps there are some down there. Come on, birds. Don't disappoint us. Can hear them all. Just try in that green bushy there. There's a blue waxbill at the bottom left, just flown off. And no, it's still there. Yeah, just in there in that little stick. Zoom in there straight. There we go. Up a little, right a bit, there we go, down a bit, now he's gone. Let's get, that is a blue waxbill, everyone. There were also some beautiful little yellow-fronted canaries that I was hoping to show you, but they seem to have absconded. Oh well, let us continue. We're not too far from Treehouse Dam. I was hoping to find some sign of leopard. We have not found any sign of leopard so far, or of wild dogs, which apparently, according to Chris Rogue, we're having a box with some hyenas on Arathusa. I'm not going to go across to Arathusa. I have had an update from there. There isn't anything going on just yet, but as soon as anything gets found there, things are very busy at the moment at Arathusa, so I think we'll struggle to get into a sighting, so we're going to continue looking around here. I can hear the Crombecs calling, I promise. There's one. It's being followed. Oh, Fergus, I'm not sure that you're going to get... There it is. It's right there. You got it. That little middle bush there. Yeah, yeah. That's just making the branches move there. It's now gone back. Let me try and call it out. Just to the left. Come on, Crombec. You're the highlight of our day so far. Oh, well, you can see it moving the twigs and the leaves. Fascinating stuff. I mean, this is what epic wildlife shows are made of. But it's gone. Okay, never mind. Let's see what else we can find. Oh, we can do a dove. No, we can't. The dove's gone. This is the most irritating drive I've ever been on. Hello, Ryan. An interesting question from you. You say, do we get any birds in South Africa that mate in lakes? Is that the question? Okay, we'll assume that it is. No, I don't think we do have any birds that I know of that mate in lakes. I mean, there are birds that mate on lily pads and around lakes, like jacanas and many of the duck species, and possibly the red-knobbed coot and that sort of thing. I don't know of any birds that actually mate under the water, though. That's an interesting question. Ryan, are there birds where you are that mate in lakes? That would be fascinating to know about. I know of no birds that will mate in a lake here in South Africa. Righty, we're approaching Treehouse Lake now. Lake Treehouse. Vast body of water. Used to supply cities around here. I'm joking, of course, it's not really used to supply cities. It's used to supply one or two particularly thirsty animals. And let's hope that there is a leopard trying to slake its thirst there. Can't see one just yet. Anna, I don't think anyone can answer this question, although Brent did say they did it yesterday as a result of predation. So, you're asking about the murmuration of quilias. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, murmuration is when huge flocks of birds, often starlings in Europe and in North America, and down here, normally things like quilias, well, it's when those flocks sort of move as one and turn into these sort of remarkable shapes around the place. And, you know, millions of birds can move almost as one organism. And Anna, you want to know why they do that? What's the reason for it? I don't really know. Brent said yesterday when he watched a Wahlberg's eagle have a go at the Quilia flock, and that Wahlberg's eagle actually caught a Quilia, they then started to do the murmuration. So it might have something to do with trying to confuse predators. That's often the explanation for sort of strange behavior. But whether that is the actual answer or not, I don't know. What I think is even more interesting, though, is how they do it. And nobody really knows. It's a mystery of biology as to how those creatures are able to move as one and never have a crash. Because if you were to put that many aeroplanes, for example, in a murmuration, it would be completely impossible for them to communicate in a manner that was sufficiently fast for them to be able to do all of those movements, obviously without any kind of practice and without smashing into each other. And somehow those birds managed to do it, and no one really knows how, which I think is very interesting. Right, there are no leopards at Treehouse Dam. Indeed, there is one solitary terrapin, and we shall leave him to his own devices. Next stop, Treehouse, at least twin dams. Laurie, you're wondering about cardinals, and if we have cardinals here. No, we do not have cardinals here, Laurie. I'm trying to think what our closest relative would be, and I can't. A cardinal, obviously a very beautiful bird. I've seen a cardinal in South Carolina, and they're about that big, I think. And the one that I saw was pretty much largely orange, with a little crest on the back. They look a little bit like barbets, like miniature barbets. And we don't get them here. I think they are entirely a New World species, as opposed to an Old World species. There is a flower we can look at. Fergus, do you see it? Isn't it not magnificent? It is called the canary nettle. What it's used for, I cannot tell you. Why it's called a nettle, I cannot tell you, because it does not defer or confer any stinging substances onto the body. But it is very pretty. And we'll look more and more probably at flowers as the season starts to wind down and goes towards the autumn, because, well, we're going to miss them, aren't we? Beautiful. Marco, you're wondering about sesame flowers and whether they bloom as well. Yes, absolutely they bloom, but they bloom for very short periods. And I haven't seen a sesame flower since, I think, probably our first rains, actually. I wouldn't say I've seen one since January. Right, that was the canary nettle, everybody. I hope that you feel sufficiently canary nettled. Marco, I'll try and find you a sesame plant, but there are very few around now. And I haven't seen one in flower for some time. Makes beautiful pink flower. I could probably show you a picture even, actually. Oh, look, there's an animal. 2 of them. 3. 3 animals. Jeffrey, I think I'm hearing your question correctly as we look at these waterbucks. You say, by what action does a flower close its petals if it has no muscles? Is that correct? Jeffrey, the way that a flower closes its flowers, I think has got a lot to do with hydraulic pressure. So, water will be pulled out or pushed in order to, into various parts, or clever sort of, I suppose you might describe them as muscles, but they don't function the same way that our muscles do. So water will be pumped into or out of special areas in the plant, which will then extend or contract the petals, in the same way that leaves wither and open. Now this is a young group of bachelor waterbuck, sort of like a group of teenage boys checking things out. Kind of 3 chaps left the family for a little while, maybe even permanently, and they're now trying to find their independent way in the world, but they're a little bit insecure, and so they've made a little group. They don't want to be on their own just yet. They haven't got their enormous rapier horns, those are still growing, and so they'll spend time together until they get big enough to be angry with each other. There's also a very nice sort of bird sighting there. Look at that, Fergus, our first proper bird sighting. Skip in Texas, while we look at what seems to be greater blue-eared glossy starlings there, you say, are all antelope babies called lambs? No, all antelope babies are not called lambs, Skip. They are alternatively lambs and or calves. And the size at which that change takes place is roughly nyala sized. So we talk about nyala lambs or calves often. I've heard both used. And then anything bigger than a nyala becomes a calf. And anything smaller than a nyala is a lamb. So a steenbok and a duiker and a bushbuck will all have lambs. Impala will also have lambs. And then anything larger than a nyala, so kudu and waterbuck, like you're looking at now, will be calves. Buffalo, wildebeest, that sort of thing, they will all be calves. And that extends, of course, to elephants. It extends to rhino. And it even extends to things like... what was I going for? Oh yes, whales. Whales have calves as well. And they even have bulls and cows. And I learnt the other day, obviously via the Twitterverse, and very kind viewers who keep feeding me wonderful information, that a female, at least a big male crocodile, is also known as a bull crocodile. I don't think we call the baby crocodiles calves or lambs, though. I think we call them growing death, something like that. That was a very pleasant waterbuck sighting, wasn't it? And Val Safari Gal, you say that the the white sort of bottom ring on a waterbuck is quite amazing, and that it looks like a target. Well, it does look like a target, doesn't it? There it is. And of course it's there, we think, for much the same reason that any animal has got white on its backside, from the wild dogs with the white tips to their tails to the kudu that flick their tails up and they go white, even to what else has a white tip to the tail? Well, various things. The white on the back of a lion's, at least not a lion's, on a... what am I going with this? Oh yes, the white on the back of a leopard's tail. That's all for following, we think. It's all a sort of following mechanism, because white is an uncommon colour out here, and it allows creatures to follow each other through the thick bush when they're running away from something, in the case of the waterbuck or the kudu, or in the case of the leopard, it allows young calves to follow their mothers, and the other way around. Now, interestingly, where we're going in the Mara, you get a waterbuck there called the Defasa waterbuck, which looks very similar to this, but it has no white bottom. And I'm therefore going to say that the Southern African version that we have down here is more attractive, because I think having a nice white ring on your bottom makes you very attractive. Wouldn't you say, Fergus? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you like a nice white ring on your bottom?
I wouldn't see it.
Yes, you see. Now, Lynn, do you want to know how many different types of antelope there are in South Africa? I can tell you that there are 10 in this area here, potentially 10. 2 of them we hardly ever see. But in South Africa itself, whoa, I mean, there are a lot. Would you like me to count them quickly? I'll do my best. Let me see if I can get through them quickly for you. 1, 2, 3... 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're on 10 so far, everybody. And then I will tell you the ones that we get here. 11, 12. I'm just paging through a book here. 13, 14, 15, 16 or so, and then you move into the gazelles. 16 or so antelope. Oh no, there are a whole lot more here. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, good grief, 25, 26, 28, 29, roughly 29 species of antelope that you get in southern Africa. Now here we get 10, and they are, I will now try and name them for you without forgetting any, which seldom ever happens. We have the waterbuck, the impala, the wildebeest. We have the 3 tragelaphid species, the kudu, the bushbuck and the nyala. We have potentially reedbuck, very seldom, potentially sable, very seldom. Then we have 2 more, which I need to try and remember. They are the duiker and the steenbok, the 2 dwarf antelope that we get here. There you go. So those are the 10 potential ones that we get here. There is a Wahlberg's eagle, very dark form, flying over very fast and away. Fergus, we seem to have done quite a lot of sort of foliage shots. Whenever I've managed to find a bird, it's disappeared rather too quickly. So 28 species of antelope in southern Africa. That's quite something, isn't it? Carly, you want to know why waterbuck wag their tails like dogs? Oh, well, it's because they're happy to see us, Carly, in the same way that your puppy will wag its tail when you come home. So the waterbuck likes to wag its tail when it sees Fergus, because Fergus is very friendly to waterbucks, and so they like to wag their tails when they see him. I'm talking rubbish. And they like to that because it gets rid of flies. It helps them get rid of flies, and there is a school of thought that says that something like an impala, for example, which has 2 black stripes either side of the tail, wags its tail to get rid of ticks. And why would there be ticks there, you say? Well, apparently those black stripes will obviously radiate heat slightly more effectively than the rest of the fur because it's black. It would also absorb heat as well, so you have these 2 sort of hot patches, if you like, in a region that the tail is able to reach, and apparently what happens is the ticks make their way towards that warmer region, and then the tail helps them to sort of get rid of them. The ticks, I mean, that is, not their black stripes. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But the wagging of the tail has got a lot to do with getting rid of flies, largely, and parasites. I don't think it's ever used for happiness. Kudu use them in alarm. They flick them up, and then you can see, like I say, they've got the white patches on them, and they run through the bush, and they follow each other. Now, there's a question from something I think called Lax Mum. Is that what you got? Lax Mum? Lax Mum. Maximum. And so they are while they are part of the same order, the order which is the even-toed ungulates, they are not antelope, so they belong to a different family. So in the same way that dogs and cats belong to the same order, which is the carnivore order, you will find that they belong to different families. And that's sort of the same relationship that antelope. "28 species of antelope found in southern Africa. There are a whole lot more in Africa, and you probably find around about the continent, which is quite certain. Alright, let's head across to Jamie. We're losing. We'll see you at Twin Dams.
Don't disappear, James. It's okay. I've got signal and I'm racing you. I'm really hoping we're going to get there in time. There's a male lion that's about to cross out of the... Others have been north of the property that we drive on. Whoa, they actually haven't yet. They've found the tracks for those. Must have been... I heard roaring. We've got one more chance, as long as I get there in time. So sorry, I'm not looking at you. Concentrating. Sensor's gripping on for dear life. Oh, please don't disappear. Please don't cross before we get there. Quick, quick, quick. Oh, there's only so fast you can drive on this road. Grass is so long, and I want to hit something like a tortoise. Let's Let's just drive a little bit carefully along here. Okay. Everybody hold on. Don't disappear, lion. This is why, actually, I sit on blankets. So that I can see over the top of the bonnet. Some unhappy francolins. Okay. Hold on. Oh. Alright, I think we've got there in time. There's another vehicle there waiting for him to pop out. This is the main boundary road between Djuma and Simbambili. Simbambili off to my left, Djuma on my right, and the line has vanished. Okay. So now, let us see if we spot him. He disappeared. One of the other guides was following him. So he's disappeared into a thicket for now. Exactly where the Nkuhumas did the other night. Hopefully he pops out. But while I wait patiently for our male lion to emerge, let's head across to Byron, who is out strolling about.
I am indeed. Now I believe all of you are viewing us from the drone camera. Good morning, and you might see my entourage, which I have with me this morning on bushwalk. There's Herbert and Scott. You might as well wave, gentlemen. Wave to the drone. It is actually a lot of fun having an extra set of eyes with you while you're out on bushwalk. There are some zebra not too far from us. You might actually be able to see them unless they've moved off already. They were in the thicket just off to my west. But anyway, so great that you're able to see what our bushwalk looks like from above. Now, it is obviously a lot different when we have got guests with us. We'll usually walk in single file. Ah, you got the zebra. There we go. There they go. I can see them running through the bush. Ah, lovely. There we go. So that's what we were trying to find you, but they're a little bit skittish, moving away from us. Ah, that's so nice. That's so nice to be able to see the zebra. Now, as I said, it's very different when we're on a bushwalk and we've got guests with us. So what usually happens is we'll be walking in single file. The guide will walk in the front. Obviously, usually I will carry the rifle. But fortunately for us, we don't have to do that here. And Herbert does carry a rifle, but it's really just a last resort. I don't think we'd ever have to use it because we're all experienced guides. So it's just in case Dave gets a bit scared, perhaps. Now, something very small, which I managed to find. Have a look at this on this grass blade. Look at the tick. So those are the little creatures we need to be careful of. Or we just constantly check ourselves, and this is probably one of the little creatures which put Senzo down for 3 days. He got his tick bite fever, unfortunately. Oh, sorry. Got his tick bite fever. So we do have to be cautious of these little ticks, and we do check ourselves regularly after bushwalk. It does help if you have been walking the bush, get back and just have a hot shower quickly, just to check if there are little pepper ticks maybe that aren't on you. It's part of walking the bush, especially now with the long grass. Now here's another interesting little creature. Have a look at this little guy. Well, not so little. It's a giant land snail. Beautiful, really, really beautiful. Soft shells, It's amazing. I always find the patterns on these shells incredible. And to find a snail out here, I really don't seem to understand how we get these creatures out here, these huge snails, but they survive. The winter though gets a bit dry. They do need moisture, and I think probably because of all the rain we had recently, that's why we're seeing a few of these giant land snails out. That's amazing. Nice to see that. Oh, there's a lot of zebra tracks around here, possibly the zebra that we just saw. I'm just listening quickly. I can hear those zebra running. I think it's still those zebra just running through the bush behind us. I can hear the hooves on the ground. Now, Mike, you asked, what do ticks do for the ecosystem? Well, Mike, I would, there's obviously a cycle. There's obviously a role that they play within an ecosystem. The main thing that I can think of immediately is food for birds. Food for birds and perhaps other types of insects. They will provide food for them. They obviously are a parasite, so they do latch on to other animals, which is not ideal. But then again, when they do reach a certain size, they provide food for a lot of birds. So maybe that is the main role, is it's an insect that provides food for other animals. The terrapins feed on them, birds feed on them. So there are a lot of animals that feed on the ticks. So I suppose, in a way, and it's just like a lot of the other insects we find out here, the main role is to provide food for other bigger animals. But they all will have a niche. They've got something specific which they do in nature. If you had to take the ticks out, a lot of birds wouldn't have food. So that would be my answer, I would say. Is their main role is to provide food. Cindy, I don't know if the hot water kills the ticks. I don't think it kills them at all. But the hot water just helps get them off. I think they don't like the hot water, the soap. So that does just help generally get ticks off of you. But I don't think it kills them at all. No, you still have to be careful. I mean, if a tick has latched on, especially one of those larger ones, if they have latched on, you'll have to actually pull it off of you. So we do constantly check for that. Let's watch out there. Julia, now the ticks which carry the diseases we need to look out for. Now there are a number of different species of ticks, and I don't know all of them. I really don't. We do get a species of tick known as a pepper tick. They're tiny, tiny little ticks. They're small. I mean, they're about that size. So that there, very, very small little ticks. Now, those little ticks you'll find just about everywhere. And when they bite you, it is a very, very itchy, irritating bite. If that tick is on you for too long, and that little bite gets infected and you get like a little black spot, and that's probably a sign that you may end up with tick bite fever. So the first thing we check for, if you do feel like you've got a fever and your body's sore and your glands are swollen and you're tired and headaches, we'll check for those little black marks for a tick bite, and that'll be a sign that it is most likely tick bite fever. We will obviously check for malaria too. But those little pepper ticks, but there are a number of ticks around that would carry a form of tick bite fever. There are slightly different strains from what I understand. I've had tick bite fever once before, but only once, and touch wood, never again. I've been bitten by ticks many, many times since. They say once you do get it, you build up a bit of a resistance to it, and then you don't get it again. Now, our ticks, or the tick bite fever, is not nearly as bad as the Lyme disease which you get. So Deborah, you asked, are ticks parasites or insects? Well, it's an insect which is a parasite. They feed on other animals, so it is considered to be a parasite. They do not they don't find food for themselves. They'll latch onto an animal and drain blood from an animal, so they are considered to be a parasite. Just having a look around here now. We're also in this area to have a look if we can't find any signs of young leopards, maybe Shungile or Hosana, those two young leopards that generally have been hanging around this area, the southern parts of Djuma. So having a look to see if we can find any tracks of them. For the moment, nothing just yet. Julia, sorry, I didn't quite get that question on. Did you ask, are there any animals that can handle ticks or? Oh, sorry, I didn't. Specialized to handle ticks. Sorry, thanks, Alice. Julia, I wouldn't say that they specialize to handle ticks. No, not at all. The best way to describe it is that these animals have all built up a certain immunity to the ticks, so they don't get or contract tick bite fever or anything like that, or massive or cause massive problems for these animals. But a lot of them have come up with certain mechanisms, I suppose you could call it, for trying to get rid of the ticks. Now, the best example I can think of is the impala. The impala, as you know, have got those beautiful dark markings around their rump. Now, those dark markings, generally the ticks are attracted to darker areas. So the ticks would go and congregate around those areas, and the impala is able to reach around and groom themselves and get those ticks off. So that is a way that they've adapted to dealing with the ticks. But again, the oxpeckers will sit on them. Other birds may fly down and pick off some ticks. But in terms of actually a specialized way of dealing with ticks, not really, other than the grooming and trying to clean them. I mean, even with the big cats, you'll see with lions, they'll groom one another, they'll lick one another, clean the ticks off. So it is, they've all got ways to get rid of these ticks. That's the best way I could describe it. But like I said, they do build up an immunity. They don't get affected like we do, unless a huge amount of ticks congregate on an animal. Then obviously it can cause some problems. Right down on the southern boundary here. Okay, now we're going to have a look around, see what we can find down here, see if we have any signs of leopards. But let's head to Jamie, who's managed to find another big cat.
After a morning of what felt like chasing phantom lions roaring all around us, we've got a real actual lion in the flesh. And not only has he not crossed out of our property, he gave us all the slip, because he started walking in the direction of the boundary and then lay down, as male lions so often do. So we're very, very fortunate in that it seems as though for now our lion is going to stay on Djuma. Hey boy. And if we're really fortunate, because it's still quite cool this morning, he might even give us a roar, because the other lions have been calling all morning. Those are the ones I've been trying to find. I'm hoping he might decide to participate in that. Our Senzon eye nearly disappeared off your screen for a long time, because remember how I said I have to sit on blankets to see over the bonnet, or the front of the vehicle? Well, I didn't see, in the long grass, a very large hole on my way in to get to him, and we very nearly did not come out of said very large hole. But we did, with actually minimal effort, just some serious squeezing between some broken trees. And there we go, worth any challenge for a sight like this first thing in the morning. Looks like Mfumo to me, from what I can see. So one of the members of the Birmingham Boys, the dominant male lion coalition of this area. And there's something about seeing, well, all things live, I suppose, but there's something about seeing male lions live that is just fantastic. the unpredictability of the way in which your morning can go. He's listening to something. I'm not sure what it is, but there's something that's caught his attention to the west and to the south of us. It could be that that's where the rest of the lions are. Perhaps the females are in that direction. Or he could be listening to the rest of his coalition calling. Just letting everybody know where they are. Phew. That was quite an interesting experience. Right, on that note, while we look at our big male lion, don't forget to send through your questions using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Julia, there is a question I should know the answer to. Good morning to you. Julia would like to know what the average decimal count is for a lion's roar. Should be relatively easy and quick to find out, should it not? We should be able to find out relatively quickly. I can tell you from experience rather than with figures. Oh, we almost thought about it there. Come on, mister. I can tell you from experience that a lion roaring next to the vehicle is a bone-shattering, not shattering, but a bone-shaking experience. The entire vehicle shakes. You can feel it vibrating in your chest. It is an enormously powerful sound. If I had to guess, and I'm going to ask those of you with Google to Google it for me, if I had to guess, I'd put it over 100 decibels. He's listening to the vehicles go past, but every now and again it looks like he might just think about it. Come on, boy, one more before it gets too warm and you want to hide in the shade. But yes, send through exactly how loud a lion's roar is in decibels, and you can do that on hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. I guess I should absolutely know the answer to that, but I don't tend to think of it in those terms. I just think because it's such an awesome experience, I haven't thought about it in a way that we can actually quantify. But of course you can. It's a sound. It makes total sense. I'm listening all around him. Not fully asleep yet. Now Val, a safari girl, lovely to have you on board, and good morning. Val, you want to know how long a lion can go without food. It very much depends upon the condition of the lion itself. And what I mean by that is a big male lion will be able to survive longer than a 6-month-old cub. But I would guess that your average male, or your average lion, could probably go for around about 3 weeks. That would put them in a very, very bad state. Their metabolisms work fast. You've seen how quickly, when we've sat with them and they've gorged themselves to the point that they're so bloated they can barely move on whatever they happen to be eating. And then 2 days later they are sleek and slim. So their metabolisms do work quickly. And bear in mind, because they can't exactly pop down to the grocery store, once they start to get weak from a lack of food, it's going to get harder and harder for them to actually catch food. So that is also a compounding factor. So I'm not sure exactly how long it would be. It's where the social aspect of lions is also extremely helpful. Just wave hello to some of the other guests arriving. Oh, there we go, he's thinking about it. There we go, come on, thinking about it. Oh, come on, boy. He's listening to the other male lions roaring somewhere. I can't hear them, but he can. He's almost responding. I don't know why he's not quite. Yes, clean your mane instead. At least your scars have all healed up nicely. Okay, so while our male lion makes up his mind, it gives us an opportunity to answer Mercedes' question, which is how many lion families live in Djuma. Sorry, I keep going silent because I keep hoping he's going to give us a demonstration quickly. Mercedes, on Djuma itself. Okay, let's go into describing lions in general first. So what will happen is you get prides with territories, and prides being made up of the females and their cubs, and then you get either a solitary male or a group of males known as a coalition. And basically what will happen is the prides have their own territories, and then the males will have territories that will encompass the territories of several different prides. And that means that they're not always with the females, they're constantly patrolling, and they move about between the females as well, whenever there happens to be a female in estrus, or perhaps just to join them for Sunday dinner. Within Djuma itself, Djuma is actually quite small, but it forms, not small, I just mean in terms of the scale of this entire reserve. And it actually is the meeting point of two different lion prides territories, and that is the Styx pride, and so they have the 3 females and their cubs, and the Nkuhuma pride, which is the 5 females and their 6 cubs. And then the Birmingham Boys controlling this entire territory. But bear in mind that we don't just drive on Djuma. We drive on places called Arathusa, Cheetah Plains, Chitwa. So we've got quite an expansive traverse area, all of which essentially is dominated by the Birmingham Boys, and most of which is the area that we see the Nkuhumas in, or the Styx. So the Nkuhumas to the north and the Styx to the south. We're just missing out on seeing another pride of lions called the Torchwood pride, and every now and again we see the Tsalala pride. And Ellen and many others, thank you very much for sending through the decibel question, or the answer to the decibel question. 114 decibels, so at least I guessed in the right range. Oh, there you go. Ambient write-up. That's a wussy war. Come on. Oh. Come on, boy. You could do better than that. That was about 10 decibels. If that. Guys, where are you? That's a contact call. That's a warm-up to the main event. He's going to roar again. Aren't you, my boy? So 114 decibels at 1 meter. That's impressive. And if I stay positive, he's going to give us a demonstration once he's finished scratching his elbow and licking his lips. Frozen mid-scratch, listening. You're going to have to call harder than that, mister. Other boys are far away. Michael, you want to know why his mane isn't as full as that of the others? You want to know if he's just younger, or if it is genetic in some way? A combination of the two. Because I've always found Mfumo to be quite dominant in the Birmingham Boy coalition, but that's difficult to say for certain because it changes constantly, and it's not just about size or age, it's about attitude as well. But he's often the one with the most injuries around his face. But absolutely, in Sugu, Nena, their manes are both fuller than that of Mfumo. I think he probably is a little bit younger. And there's also always a slight genetic factor, although each of the Birmingham Boys is related to each other. So it's not a huge factor in it. And I mean, it's like watching children grow up. Oh, it sounds as though James has got an unusual bird. We'll be right back here if he starts roaring, but go and have a look before it disappears.
There is a white-winged widow, everybody. And that is an unusual bird for this area. And we've shown many of them to you in the last little while, and that's just because it's been so very rainy here. The grass has grown very long, and so many seed-eating birds which are nomadic, such as this white-winged widow, who is now, I mean, he looks like a bird of paradise, doesn't he? Looking for his females. That's fantastic. I'm not sure that I've often seen that display before. And obviously, against that very sort of white background, he looks completely black. But he's got very pretty sort of yellow shoulders and white patches on his wings. And that sort of fanning tail is to display to his ladies, of which there seem to be an inescapable lack. No. Here he comes. Look, he's just above the hibiscus flowers there. There you can see his pretty colours. And an almost silver beak. Isn't he lovely? He is a really special bird. Just because we don't see him very often. Is he gone? And there, the hibiscus flowers you can see are now opening up as it gets just slightly warmer. Marvellous. Oh, here we are at Cheetah Plains. We're now approaching 3 in a row pan, trifecta waterholes, as Brian used to call them. Let's go and see what there is at trifecta waterholes. Off for the cats, or sort of a little bit. Well done, Jamie. That doesn't mean we're going to stop trying, of course. Alright, apparently our signal is not great, so let's head across to Byron and find out what's happening with him, and we'll see you in the clearings. Liz.
Not much happening with me, James. We're having a look around, but I've noticed some ants on the ground. I think these are the. I always get this wrong. I say pennyrincus, but it's polyrhynchus. That's thanks, Dave. Polyrhynchus ants. These are they lemon drop ants? They call. I think they've got that acidity that it tastes almost like lemon. I'm not going to try and taste one. I know James has done it in the past, but I'll leave the ants to be. Polyrhynchus. You can actually see all the swirl over here is probably from termites or ants. This looks like the ants, the ant colony that have dug up a bit of the soil, and they used that to build this little section of ant colony. Oh, have a look at this, Dave. I don't know if we can see it. It's so well camouflaged. There's a little cricket just on the. Oh, yeah, it's moving now. Sorry, it just came out of this hole. This is a little hole that a cricket came out of, and it's moved off now. But it is so well camouflaged, I can't see it anymore. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I hit my head in the aerial. Oh dear, oh dear. I can hear some babblers calling behind me. Let's see. The babblers, those arrow marked babblers, they do that allomimetic calling. It's a communal calling, where one starts and they all call together. You can also hear the black-headed oriole in the distance. Calling off in that direction. I think my oriole call is much better than the one James did this morning. He might disagree. I think he thinks I'm tone deaf, which I think I am sometimes. Just having a look around to see if there aren't any interesting little insects on that stump. Nothing there. It's amazing. You can find little insects moving around just about everywhere. But obviously they are well camouflaged. It's not always easy to see them. Have a look. This is a Combritum. Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely eat an ant if I had to, for protein or whatever, and if I'm stuck out in the bush. But fortunately for us, we get bacon and eggs back at the camp, so I don't have to eat an ant. But yeah, definitely. I've eaten mapani worms, which we do get out here. I've eaten some strange things in my time. What else? Bully beef. When we were training, we had to. So we spent a week out in the bush. Our first week out in the bush, we didn't know what to expect. And they left us in the bush. They rationed us with food. We were given water though, but we had to sleep out in the open and take turns keeping watch at night in this area, not far from here. And that's when James was training me. So we had to try and find bits of food or whatever we could find. We ate marula fruit. Luckily, it was in summer, so there was marula fruit around. So we lived on marula fruit for 5 days. They gave us like a corned beef that we had to share amongst 6 of us, but one little tin. It wasn't much. And it's not very tasty, or not very good, but it happened to be delicious while we were out there because we were so hungry. Now, yesterday, I'm just listening to all these birds. It's got me thinking. Yesterday, we got a brief glimpse of a bird that I'd never seen before, and it looked like a European honey buzzard. Now, when I got back to camp, I told Brent and told Scott and told James, and they were all quite excited because they don't think any of them had seen it here before, and I think Brent had seen honey buzzard before, but not here. But the others hadn't seen it either. So, and they do pop up all over South Africa now and then. They do migrate. But I'm having a good look around to see if we can't find those birds again. There were 2 of them, which is unusual. They can be solitary. But the European honey buzzard, beautiful bird. But immediately, as I saw it, I knew it's a bird that I'd never seen before. And that makes it a bit easier when you're identifying them. As long as you can tell what family they are in, and then you can start having a look. So you can see, well, it is hawk-like or goshawk-like, whatever, and smaller than an eagle. So buzzard, you can start looking and weighing up the options and having a look around. So that's how I came to that conclusion that that's what it was. But definitely clear markings we could see. So it was a European honey buzzard. Lightning guy, you asked, are there any seagulls in Africa? There are indeed. But that reminds me of a funny story. Obviously, we don't have seagulls out here. We've got along the coastline many different species of seagulls. But there was a funny story. There was a local guide that used to work at a lodge in this area. And the local accent, especially if you're a foreigner, sometimes is difficult to understand. And these guests had been on a safari with him, and they came back, and they had come back a year later, and they were with another guide, and they said to this guide they would like to see the seagull. And the guide drove around. He said, "What do you mean the seagull?" And they said, "No, last time we were here, our guide told us there were seagulls." And he said, "Look, perhaps he made a mistake, but there are no seagulls out here. Not in the bush, definitely not." And about a week later, this guide was walking around, and he heard the other guide who had driven these guests, and he was explaining to the guests on the deck that there's a bird flying, and he said, there it goes there. It is a Wahlberg seagull." So they obviously heard Wahlberg seagull, but it's a Wahlberg's eagle. But that accent, again, it was lost in translation, I suppose. let's head to the good old James Henry with a spider.
I don't think that Byron should be referring to me as good old anything, especially after he has cast aspersions on my ability to make bird calls, and that coming from one of possibly the second most tone-deaf person I've ever come across in my life. Anyway, I've now had my rant about Byron, and we can look with comfort and joy at this very intimidating species of spider. It is building, or she is building her web. And this is a gorgeous golden orb-web spider. The gorgeous is an additional adjective I've put in there. It's not officially known as the gorgeous golden orb-web spider. And there is her husband, sitting patiently waiting for her to do the housework. Of course, that is where the patriarchal society of the spider ends. Yes, she will do the housework. She will even do the cooking and killing. But she may also eat her husband if she gets very hungry and find another one. So he has to be very careful. There are the remains of her dinner. They're not very good at washing up, are the golden orb-web spiders. But they do that for a reason. They put those husks there so that birds don't fly into the webs. Now what's always interesting to me is that they are, of all of the orb-web spiders I know of, probably the spider that makes the web that is the least neat. And you can see there that the strands that she's making, look at how she uses her back legs there to attach them to the support strands. But they're not as equally spaced as they would be on many other orb-web spiders' nests or webs. And there's certainly nothing like as intricate or as neat as the web of the tropical tent-web spider, for example. But look at the astounding delicacy with which she's doing this. An octo-girly, well, perhaps with a name like that, you are partial to things with 8 legs. You say, what a beautiful spider. It is an astonishingly fantastic spider. Look at the male there. She's just sort of gently tapping him on the back, saying, have you mowed the lawn? And he's saying, well, I was going to. And she's saying, well, if you don't, I might eat you. I'm feeling a little peckish. It's getting towards breakfast time. You can imagine her voice being quite silky, but intimidating. Gee, this is a wonderful picture. Look at the spinnerets there producing golden silk. One of the strongest substances known to nature. Stronger than high tensile steel. There, she's pulling it out. And it's not that... It's interesting. She's missing a leg. Is she? No, she's not. She's using... Oh, okay, I can see what she's doing now. She's using her left back leg and her right middle back leg to attach the silk. You see how untidy it is there? That is just fantastic. It is the most wonderful picture. Fergus, you're doing a sterling job there. But you can see she's just slightly offline. Not that I suppose it matters at all. Well, obviously it doesn't. Ah, wow. She's going past her husband again, who seems to not have moved, despite her instructions. Now he's just looking afraid. Now she might give him a little bit of a cuddle. And there she will sit, waiting for something to fly into the web. I think this might be the best golden orb-web spider sighting I've ever had. I've never seen them build before. And R. Lara Moore, you say that this is Spider Engineering 101. Yes, I suppose it is. Now look what she's done. She swapped over. She's now using, because she's going the other way, she's using her back right leg and her left back middle in exactly the opposite way to the way she was when she was going the other way around. That's quite clever. So she's using the back left leg as a sort of anchor to move around, to pull herself around. It is just astounding.